The shuttle hit the ground hard. Metal screamed and twisted. Taewon felt his body slam against the restraints. Glass shattered. Alarms blared in his ears. Then everything went quiet except for the hiss of escaping air and the crackle of sparks from broken systems. He hung upside down in his seat. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. His hands shook as he reached for the release button. The harness clicked open and he fell onto the ceiling, which was now the floor. Pain shot through his shoulder, but nothing felt broken. He was alive. Taewon crawled through the wreckage. Smoke filled the cabin. He grabbed his emergency pack and kicked open the damaged door. Fresh air hit his face as he stumbled out onto alien soil. The shuttle was destroyed. Flames licked at the engines. He ran until he was far enough away, then collapsed on the ground and watched his only way home burn. The moon was beautiful in a deadly way. Massive trees stretched toward a purple sky. 2 suns hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows. In the distance, a gas giant filled half the sky with swirling clouds of orange and red. Taewon had studied this moon from orbit for 3 weeks. He knew it was dangerous. He knew the wildlife here had killed 5 explorers in the past 2 years. He never thought he would be stranded here. He checked his supplies. 1 water container, protein bars for maybe 5 days, a basic medical kit, a small fire starter, a broken communication device that sparked when he tried to turn it on. No weapon. Company policy said scientists did not need weapons. Taewon laughed bitterly at that policy now. The temperature was dropping fast. The 2 suns were setting and night came quickly on this moon. Taewon knew he needed shelter and fire. He gathered dry wood and found a small clearing surrounded by rocks. His hands remembered the training from years ago. Spark, kindling, breath. The fire caught and grew. Heat washed over him. Taewon sat close to the flames and ate half a protein bar. He should save food, but his body needed energy. The cut on his head had stopped bleeding. His shoulder ached, but he could move it. He was lucky. That crash should have killed him. Night fell completely. The darkness here was absolute. No city lights. No moon in the sky. Just his small fire and the vast unknown beyond it. Strange sounds echoed through the forest. Clicks and whistles. Rustling in the undergrowth. Something large moving between the trees. Then he saw the eyes. They glowed in the firelight, yellow-green and reflecting like mirrors. 1 pair, 2 pairs, 5 pairs, more. They circled his camp, staying just beyond the light. Taewon's heart hammered in his chest. He knew what they were, Valkyrie, pack hunters, apex predators of this moon. Every explorer who died here died because of them. The Valkyrie were roughly the size of large wolves, but built differently. Longer limbs. Wider heads. 6 legs instead of 4. Their bodies were covered in dark scales that absorbed light. Perfect night hunters. Previous reports said they showed intelligence in their hunting patterns. They coordinated attacks. They learned from mistakes. Taewon stayed very still. He fed more wood to the fire. The flames grew higher. Animals feared fire, he told himself. Even alien animals. But the eyes did not leave. They watched and waited, then something changed. 1 set of eyes came closer. Smaller than the others. Lower to the ground. The creature limped into the edge of the firelight and Taewon saw it clearly. A cub. Young, maybe the size of a medium dog. Its scales were lighter than the adult's, almost gray instead of black. One of its front legs was injured and bleeding. The cub was shaking. It stared at the fire with wide eyes. Not with fear, but with desperate need. The cub was cold. Taewon could see its whole body trembling. The night temperature had dropped below freezing now. His breath came out in clouds. The adult Valkyrie growled from the darkness. Low rumbling sounds that Taewon felt in his chest. They were warning the cub to come back. But the cub did not move. It was too cold, too hurt, too drawn to the warmth of the flames. Taewon's training told him to scare it away, make himself big, make noise, throw rocks, never show weakness to predators, never invite them close. But as he looked at the trembling cub, he saw something else. He saw a living thing in pain. He saw a child separated from safety. He saw himself alone and hurt on an alien world. Slowly, very slowly, Taewon reached into his pack. He pulled out a protein bar and unwrapped it. The sound made the cub's ears twitch. Those ears were strange, more like fins than ears running along the sides of its head. Taewon broke off a piece of the bar and held it out. The cub watched him. The adult Valkyrie growled louder. Taewon did not look at them. He kept his eyes on the cub and stayed calm. He made soft clicking sounds with his tongue, the kind of sounds people made to call small animals. The cub took one limping step forward, then another. It was so close now that Taewon could see the wound on its leg clearly, deep scratches, maybe from a fall or a fight. Definitely infected. The cub would probably die without help. Taewon set the food on the ground between them and pulled his hand back. He showed his palms empty and harmless. The cub sniffed the air. Then it lurched forward and grabbed the food in its mouth. Sharp teeth flashed, but they did not bite him. The cub ate quickly, desperately. While it ate, Taewon did something insane. He moved closer. The adult Velkari snarled but did not attack. Maybe they were confused. Maybe they had never seen a human act this way before. Usually humans ran or shot at them. Taewon reached out very slowly toward the cub. His hand shook. The cub looked at him with eyes that were too intelligent for a simple animal. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Taewon gently grasped the cub's uninjured leg and pulled it closer to the fire. The cub resisted for a second, then gave in. It was too weak and too cold to fight. Taewon positioned it near the flames where the heat was strongest. The cub's shaking began to slow as warmth soaked into its body. Taewon opened his medical kit. He had antiseptic and bandages, not much but enough. He showed the supplies to the cub, letting it sniff them. Then he carefully cleaned the wound on its leg. The cub whimpered and tried to pull away, but Taewon held firm. He had to be gentle but thorough. Infection would kill it within days. The antiseptic must have stung, but the cub did not bite him. It watched his face the entire time as if trying to understand what he was doing. Taewon wrapped the leg with a bandage and tied it securely. The cub tested the bandage with its teeth but did not tear it off. Exhaustion hit Taewon all at once. The crash, the injuries, the fear, and now this strange act of kindness to a creature that should be his enemy. He fed the fire again and lay down on the ground using his pack as a pillow. The cub was curled up on the other side of the flames, already asleep. The adult Velkari were still out there. Taewon could feel them watching, but they did not attack. Something had changed in that moment when he chose compassion over fear. The rules were different now. As Taewon closed his eyes, he wondered if he would wake up in the morning or if the pack would kill him in his sleep. He was too tired to care. His last thought before sleep took him was that the cub looked peaceful by the fire, warm, safe. That had to count for something. Taewon woke to the sound of breathing that was not his own. He opened his eyes slowly, expecting death. Instead, he found the cub lying next to him. Not attacking, just sleeping, pressed against his side for warmth. The fire had died down to embers. Morning light filtered through the trees in shades of purple and gold. The adult Velkari were gone. Taewon sat up carefully and the cub stirred, looking at him with those strange, intelligent eyes. The bandage on its leg was still in place. The cub stood and tested its weight on the injured leg. It still limped, but less than before. Taewon's stomach growled. He had 4 protein bars left, maybe 3 days of food if he was careful. He unwrapped one and broke it in half. The cub watched every movement. Taewon ate his half slowly, then offered the other piece. The cub took it gently from his hand this time. Progress. He needed water. His container was half empty. The cub finished eating and looked at him, then turned and limped toward the trees. It stopped and looked back, waiting. Taewon understood. He grabbed his pack and followed. The cub led him through the forest. Taewon stayed alert, watching for danger, but the cub seemed to know where it was going. After 20 minutes of walking, he heard the sound of running water. A small stream cut through the rocks, clear and cold. Taewon filled his container and checked it with his scanner. Safe to drink. The cub lapped at the water's edge. This creature was helping him. Taewon sat on a rock and watched the cub drink. In his studies, he had read about symbiotic relationships between species. Cooperation that benefited both sides. But this was different. This was a predator and prey choosing to help each other. Or maybe he was not prey anymore. Maybe he was something new. They spent the morning together. The cub showed him plants with purple leaves that his scanner confirmed were edible. Not tasty, but nutritious enough. Taewon gathered as much as he could carry. The cub led him to a tree with strange fruit hanging from low branches. The scanner said they were safe. He ate 3 and felt strength return to his body. In return, Taewon cleaned the cub's wound again and changed the bandage. The infection was clearing up already. Whatever antiseptic the company provided, actually worked on alien biology. Small miracle. The cub sat patiently while he worked, occasionally making soft chirping sounds. Taewon started calling the cub Riven in his mind. It needed a name. Riven seemed right. Sharp but not cruel. Strong but capable of gentleness. The cub Riven seemed to respond to the sound of it. Maybe it could hear the affection in his voice. Over the next 4 days, they fell into a routine. Riven would appear at dawn and lead Taewon to water or food. Taewon would share what little supplies he had and tend to Riven's healing leg. They would rest during the hottest part of the day when both suns were high. At night, they would sleep by the fire, Riven curled against Taewon's side. But they were never truly alone. Taewon sensed the adult Valkyrie watching from the forest. Sometimes he would see movement in the shadows. Sometimes he would hear their calls echoing through the trees. They were always there, observing this strange partnership between human and cub. On the 5th morning, everything changed. Taewon woke to find Riven standing stiff and alert. The cub's scales had darkened, a response to stress. Taewon followed Riven's gaze and his heart stopped. The Valkyrie pack stood at the edge of his camp. 7 adults, massive and powerful. Their scales were pitch black in the morning light. At the center was the largest one he had seen yet. Female, he guessed, from the broader head and the way the others deferred to her. The matriarch, Taewon forced himself to breathe slowly. He stood up but did not reach for anything that could be seen as a weapon. He kept his hands visible and his posture non-threatening. Riven walked forward to the matriarch, chirping softly. The matriarch lowered her head and sniffed the cub carefully, examining the bandaged leg. Then those intelligent eyes turned to Taewon. They stared at each other across the cold ashes of the fire. The matriarch was deciding something. Taewon could see it in the way she tilted her head, in the way her scales shifted color slightly. She was evaluating him. Predator to, not prey, not threat, something else. Taewon slowly reached into his pack. The entire pack tensed. He moved even slower, showing them his hand going into the pack, pulling out a protein bar with careful movements. He unwrapped it, broke it into pieces, and placed them on the ground. Then he backed away 3 steps. The matriarch watched him retreat. She looked at the food, then at Riven, then back at him. One of the other adults growled low, but she silenced it with a sharp sound. She approached the food carefully, sniffed it, then ate a piece. The protein bar was gone in seconds. For a long moment, nothing happened. The pack waited. Taewon waited. Riven sat between them, looking from the matriarch to Taewon and back again. Then the matriarch made a decision. She turned and walked back to the forest. The pack followed. But Riven stayed. The matriarch stopped and looked back. She made a series of clicks and chirps. Riven responded with similar sounds but did not move from Taewon's side. The matriarch seemed to consider this. Then she settled down at the edge of the clearing, visible but not threatening. The rest of the pack spread out around them. Taewon understood. He was being tested. The matriarch was allowing Riven to stay with him, but the pack would watch. If he hurt the cub, they would kill him. If he continued to care for it, they would allow this strange arrangement to continue. Days passed. The pack became a constant presence. They no longer hid in deep shadows. They rested in view, hunted nearby, brought back kills that they shared among themselves. Taewon rebuilt his fire each night and the pack did not react. They had accepted fire as part of his nature, just as hunting was part of theirs. Taewon began to study them more carefully. He noticed patterns in their sounds, different chirps for different situations, a high whistle that meant danger, a low rumble that seemed to indicate satisfaction or approval, a series of clicks that the pack used to coordinate movements. They had language. Basic but definitely language. He started trying to mimic the sounds. His human vocal cords could not make the exact tones, but he could get close. Riven seemed amused by his attempts, making a sound that Taewon swore was laughter. But the pack noticed. They stopped what they were doing and listened when he made his clumsy clicks and chirps. One evening, Taewon was sitting by the fire practicing the sounds. Riven was teaching him, repeating a pattern until he could copy it. The matriarch approached, closer than she had come since that first morning. She sat down across the fire from him. They looked at each other through the flames. Taewon tried the sound pattern he had been practicing. The matriarch's ears twitched. He tried again, getting it slightly better. She made the sound back to him, slower, clearer. He repeated it. She made a rumbling sound that seemed approving. They sat together in silence after that. Taewon, Riven, and the Matriarch, three beings from different worlds, different evolutions, finding common ground in the simple act of being present together. The rest of the pack settled around the fire's edge, creating a circle of warm bodies. That night, something beeped in Taewon's pack. He jumped up and dug through it frantically. The communication device. It was working again, or partly working. The solar panel must have finally charged it enough to reboot the emergency beacon. A small light blinked green. Signal transmitting. Rescue would come. Taewon should have felt relief. He should have felt joy. Instead, he felt something heavy settle in his chest. He looked at Riven sleeping peacefully by the fire. He looked at the Matriarch watching him with those knowing eyes. He had found something here. Understanding. Trust. Something that felt almost like family. And soon he would have to choose. Leave and return to his own kind. Or stay and protect what he had built with these magnificent creatures. He did not know if he could explain to a rescue team why a human would choose to stay with the very predators that killed so many explorers. But as he watched the fire burn low and felt Riven's warmth against his side, Taewon realized something important. These deaths happened because humans never tried to understand. They came with weapons and fear. They shot first. The Valkyrie were just defending their home. Maybe it was time for humans to try a different approach. Maybe it was time to prove that humanity could be better than its worst instincts. Maybe one person making one choice could change how two species saw each other forever. The beacon blinked steadily in the darkness. Help was coming. For better or worse, everything was about to change. The rescue ship came 3 days later. Taewon heard it before he saw it. The roar of engines cutting through the morning air. Riven jumped up, scales darkening with alarm. The Matriarch and her pack melted into the forest shadows. Only Riven stayed at Taewon's side, trembling. Taewon put a calming hand on the cub's head. "It's okay," he said softly, even though he was not sure that was true. The ship landed in a clearing 100 meters away. It was a standard rescue vessel, smaller than his destroyed shuttle but heavily armored. The kind of ship that expected trouble. The engines powered down and a ramp descended. 4 people emerged, all wearing tactical gear and carrying weapons. Leading them was Commander Hyo-sun. Taewon recognized him from mission briefings. Mid-40s, military background, known for efficiency and following protocol. Behind him was Da-eun, the team medic. She carried medical supplies instead of a large weapon. The other 2 were security personnel, their rifles up and scanning the tree line. Hyo-sun spotted Taewon and his expression changed from focused to shocked. "Dr. Taewon? Is that you?" "It's me." Taewon stood up slowly, keeping Riven behind him. The team approached carefully. Hyo-sun's eyes took in the makeshift camp, the fire, and then fixed on Riven. He stopped walking. "Everyone freeze. We have a Valkyrie juvenile at the survivor's position." The security team raised their weapons immediately. Taewon stepped fully in front of Riven. "Don't shoot. Lower your weapons. Doctor, step away from the hostile." Hyo-sun's voice was firm, commander giving orders. "That thing is dangerous. No, you need to listen to me. This is not what you think." Da-eun moved closer, studying the situation with sharp eyes. She was younger than Hyo-sun, maybe early 30s, with the kind of face that showed she thought carefully before acting. "Commander, the Valkyrie isn't attacking. And look at Dr. Taewon. He's been here for weeks. He's healthy, no major injuries. That's impossible on this moon." Hyo-sun did not lower his guard. "Doctor, we read your beacon. We came as fast as we could. The company said you crashed 17 days ago. Everyone who lands on this moon dies within 48 hours. How are you alive?" Taewon gestured to Riven, who was pressed against his legs now, watching the armed humans with wide eyes. "Because I didn't shoot first. Because I chose to help instead of harm. This cub was injured and I treated it. The pack accepted me after that." "The pack?" One of the security guards scanned the forest nervously. "There are more? 7 adults. Watching us right now from the trees. They won't attack unless you threaten the cub or me." Hyo-sun's jaw tightened. "This is insane, Dr. Taewon. You've been alone too long. You're not thinking clearly. We need to extract you immediately and get you medical attention." "My thinking is perfectly clear." Taewon kept his voice calm but firm. "What's insane is that we've been killing these creatures without trying to understand them. They're intelligent, Commander. They have language. They cooperate. They care for their young. Everything we do, they do. Dayun knelt down, setting her medical bag aside. May I approach? I want to examine you both. Taewon nodded. She moved forward slowly, hands visible and empty. Riven growled softly, but Taewon made a clicking sound, one he had learned from the matriarch. The cub quieted. Dayun's eyes widened slightly at that. She pulled out a scanner and checked Taewon's vital signs. Healthy. Surprisingly so. Minor malnutrition, but nothing critical. Some bruising from the crash, but healed well. No infections. She looked at Riven. The cub. Injured leg when I found it. Infected wound. I treated it with my medical supplies. Dayun moved her scanner toward Riven carefully. The cub watched but did not retreat. Wound is healing cleanly. The bandage work is good. Very good, actually. She looked up at Taewon with new understanding in her eyes. You saved its life, and it saved mine. The cub showed me water sources, edible plants, safe paths through the forest. We survived together. Hyosun stepped forward, frustration clear on his face. This is not protocol, Doctor. Velkhari are classified as extreme threats. First contact protocols require armed observation, and your protocols killed 5 explorers. Taewon cut him off. Every report says the same thing. Humans landed, saw Velkhari, panicked, opened fire. The packs defended their territory. What did we expect would happen? We expected, Hyosun said coldly, to protect human lives. By ending others? Without trying communication first? That's not protection, that's just fear. The two men stared at each other. Dayun stood between them, her mind clearly working through what she was seeing. One of the security guards shifted nervously. Commander, I'm picking up movement in the trees. Multiple large signatures. Hold your fire, Hyosun ordered. Then to Taewon, call them off. I can't call them off. They're not mine to command. They're a family protecting their home, but they won't attack unless you do something aggressive. Like pointing weapons at their cub, Dayun said quietly. Hyosun considered this. He was a military man, but not a stupid one. He looked at Taewon standing protectively over the Velkhari cub. He looked at Dayun's scanner readings showing a healthy man who should be dead. He looked at the forest where an entire pack waited. Lower weapons, he ordered. Safety's on. But stay alert. The security team obeyed, though they looked unhappy about it. The tension in the air decreased slightly. Riven's scales lightened a shade, returning toward their normal gray color. Taewon felt the cub relax against his leg. From the forest came a new sound. A low rumbling call. The matriarch emerged from the shadows, moving with liquid grace. She was huge up close, easily 3 times the size of Riven. The security team tensed but kept their weapons down. More adults appeared behind her, flanking positions. They surrounded the clearing but did not advance. Hyosun's hand moved toward his sidearm but stopped. Doctor, are we about to die? No, she's showing you her pack. Demonstrating strength. It's not a threat, it's an introduction. They want you to understand what you're dealing with. Dayun was recording everything with her scanner. Her hand shook slightly, but her voice was steady. This is incredible. Look at the formation. They're coordinating. That's tactical awareness. The matriarch made a series of clicks and chirps. Riven responded with similar sounds. Taewon recognized some of the patterns. They were communicating about the new humans. Riven was explaining in its own way that these were like Taewon. The matriarch seemed to be asking questions. Taewon tried to join the conversation. He made the clicking pattern that seemed to mean no harm or peaceful. His pronunciation was terrible, but the intent was clear. The matriarch's ears twitched. She looked at him directly, then made a rumbling sound that he had learned meant acknowledgement. Did you just... Hyosun stared at him. Did you just communicate with it? Basic communication. Very basic. But yes, Dayun was practically vibrating with excitement. We need linguists here, xenobiologists, a full research team. Commander, this is first contact. Real first contact. This is a security situation, Hyosun countered, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Taewon saw his opening. Make it a diplomatic situation instead. Report back to headquarters that the Velkhari are not mindless predators. They're a species capable of communication and cooperation. Request a proper first contact team, not just soldiers. The company will never approve that. Too expensive, too risky. Then make them approve it. Show them Dayun's recordings. Show them that I'm alive when I should be dead. Show them that we have a chance to do this right for once. A tense silence filled the clearing. The humans stood on one side, the Velkhari pack on the other, with Taewon and Riven in the middle. Everything balanced on what happened next. Finally, Hyosun spoke. I'll send the report, but headquarters will want you extracted. They'll say you're compromised. I am compromised, Taewon admitted. I'm compromised by seeing these creatures as people instead of threats. If that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. Taeyeon stepped forward. I'll support the report. My medical and behavioral recordings back up everything Dr. Taewon says. This is legitimate first contact scenario. Hyo-sun looked at his team at the Valkyrie pack, at Taewon and the Cub standing together. He let out a long breath. This is going to be a nightmare to explain. But fine, we'll do this your way. For now, everyone back to the ship slowly. No sudden movements, the security team began retreating carefully. Taeyeon lingered, looking at Riven with wonder. What do you call the Cub? Riven. It fits. She smiled, then followed her commander. As the rescue team withdrew, the matriarch made another rumbling call. The pack faded back into the forest, leaving only her and Riven visible. She approached Taewon slowly. He stood still, heart pounding. She was close enough that he could see the patterns in her scales, smell the wild scent of her. She lowered her head and touched her nose briefly to his hand. Then she turned and vanished into the trees like smoke. Riven looked up at Taewon and chirped softly. The sound seemed questioning. Taewon knelt down and scratched behind the Cub's strange fin-like ears. Yeah, I don't know what happens next either. But whatever happened, the impossible had already occurred. Humans and Valkyrie had met without violence. That had to mean something. That had to be worth protecting, even if it cost him everything. The rescue team set up camp near their ship. Hyo-sun refused to leave immediately, which Taewon took as a good sign. They spent 2 days observing, recording, and sending reports back to headquarters. Taeyeon documented everything with scientific precision. The security team remained nervous but no longer pointed weapons at every shadow. Riven stayed close to Taewon, sometimes venturing to the edge of the forest to interact with the pack. The matriarch and other adults would appear periodically, always watching, always evaluating. It was a strange peace, fragile but real. On the third morning, Taewon woke to pressure in his ears. The air felt heavy, charged with something wrong. He looked at the sky and saw dark clouds gathering at impossible speed. The 2 suns were barely visible behind the growing darkness. Taeyeon noticed his expression. What is it? Storm coming. A bad one. He had studied the weather patterns from orbit. This moon experienced massive storm systems every few years, powerful enough to strip trees and flood entire valleys. We need shelter. Real shelter. Hyo-sun checked his instruments and his face went pale. Atmospheric pressure is dropping fast. Wind speed's increasing. This is going to be big. He activated his communicator. All personnel to the ship. Immediate evac. The team scrambled to pack equipment. Taewon grabbed his own supplies, but his mind was racing. The ship would protect the humans. What about the Valkyrie? He looked toward the forest and saw the pack already moving, heading toward higher ground. Then Riven appeared at his side, chirping urgently. The Cub kept looking at him, then at the forest, then back. The message was clear. Come with us, Doctor, let's go. Hyo-sun shouted from the ship's ramp. Taewon started toward the ship, but Riven grabbed his pant leg with gentle teeth, pulling him toward the trees. The Cub's scales were dark with stress. In the forest, Taewon could see the matriarch waiting, watching. The wind picked up suddenly, violent and cold. The first drops of rain hit like bullets. Lightning split the sky, followed by thunder that shook the ground. This was going to be worse than he thought. Taewon made a decision. He ran to the ship where Hyo-sun was waiting. We need to follow them. The Valkyrie no shelter. What? No, get on the ship. That's an order. Your ship isn't designed for this. Look at those clouds. Look at the wind speed. A storm this size will ground you, and if a tree falls on the ship, the hull might breach. Taeyeon checked her readings. He's right, Commander. This is a Category 5 equivalent. Our ship can handle a lot, but not this kind of sustained assault. Hyo-sun looked torn between protocol and survival. Lightning struck a tree 50 meters away. The explosion of wood made the decision for him. Where are they going? Caves, higher ground. I've seen the pack use them during smaller storms. Another gust of wind hit hard enough to make everyone stagger. The ship's ramp began to shake on its hydraulics. One of the security guards shouted, We need to decide now. All personnel, emergency packs only. We follow Dr. Taewon and the Valkyrie. Hyo-sun's voice carried command authority even through the rising storm. Move fast. They grabbed what they could carry and ran. Riven led the way with Taewon right behind. The rescue team followed in a tight group. Rain poured down in sheets now, turning the ground to mud. The wind howled like something alive and angry. The Valkyrie pack appeared out of the storm, flanking the running humans. The matriarch took point with Riven, leading them through the forest on paths only she knew. The other adults spread out, guiding the slower humans, keeping them together. It was coordinated, protective. They were herding the humans to safety. Daeun slipped in the mud and one of the Valkyrie adults stopped, making urgent chirping sounds until she got back up. The security guard behind her stared in shock. The creature could have attacked her vulnerable moment. Instead, it had waited for her. They climbed higher, fighting the wind and rain. Taewon's lungs burned and his legs ached, but he pushed forward. Behind them, he heard a massive crack. He turned to see a tree falling toward the rescue ship. The ship's hull crumpled under the impact. Hyo-sun saw it too, and his expression said everything. If they had stayed, they would be trapped or dead. The matriarch led them to a cliff face where a large cave entrance yawned in the rock. She disappeared inside and Riven followed. Taewon went next, trusting completely. The humans filed in after, soaked and exhausted. The cave was deep and dry. The Valkyrie pack was already inside, shaking water from their scales. The space was large enough for everyone, but it was still crowded. Humans and Valkyrie pressed together, separated by fear and uncertainty. Lightning illuminated the cave entrance, showing the storm's full fury outside. Wind screamed through the opening. Rain fell so hard it looked like a solid wall. This was the kind of storm that killed everything caught in it. Hyo-sun took charge out of habit. Everyone check your equipment. See what we saved. He looked at Taewon. You were right. That ship would have been a coffin. The Valkyrie saved us, Taewon said simply. They could have left us to die. Daeun was already observing the pack. Look at how they're positioned. Adults on the outside, younger ones protected in the center. Same as us, keeping vulnerable members safe. The matriarch approached Hyo-sun directly. The commander tensed but held his ground. She looked at him with those intelligent eyes, made a low rumbling sound, then turned away. It was not a threat. It was acknowledgement. You are here. You are protected. Welcome. Hours passed. The storm raged outside with no sign of stopping. The humans and Valkyrie shared the space in careful proximity. At first, both groups stayed on opposite sides of the cave. But gradually, necessity broke down barriers. The temperature dropped as night approached. The humans had emergency blankets, but they were thin. The Valkyrie had their body heat and thick scales. Riven, comfortable with Taewon, curled up against him naturally. The warmth was immediate and welcome. Daeun shivered violently nearby. One of the adult Valkyrie noticed and moved closer, settling down near her. Not touching, but close enough to share heat. Daeun stared at the creature in wonder, then carefully moved nearer. The Valkyrie's scales adjusted color slightly, a sign of relaxation. Daeun stopped shivering. One by one, the others followed. The security guards sat near Valkyrie adults. Hyo-sun found himself with a younger pack member who watched him with curious eyes. The cave became a shared refuge, filled with the sound of breathing and the distant storm. Taewon pulled out his remaining food supplies. He had some protein bars and the purple plants he had learned to eat. Not much. He distributed what he had to the humans. Then he offered some to the matriarch. She sniffed it, accepted a piece, and made a chirping call. Another adult disappeared into a deeper section of the cave and returned, dragging something. Meat from a previous kill stored in the cool darkness. The matriarch tore off pieces and distributed them to her pack. Then she tore off more and pushed them toward the humans. The offer was clear. We share, you share. We survive together. Hyo-sun looked at the raw alien meat, then at Taewon. Is it safe? I've eaten it before. Cooked is better, but raw won't kill you. Daeun took a piece first, examining it with her scanner. Protein structure is compatible. It's actually similar to Earth biology. She took a bite, chewed, and nodded. Not bad. Gamey but edible, they ate together. Humans and Valkyrie, sharing food in a dark cave while a storm tried to destroy the world outside. It should have been impossible. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt almost normal. Later that night, something happened that changed everything. Part of the cave entrance began to crack under the storm's pressure. Rocks shifted and broke free. Water poured through the new gaps. The cave was flooding. Everyone jumped up in alarm. The matriarch made loud chirping calls, organizing her pack. They moved to the weakening section and began pushing rocks into place with their powerful bodies. But it was not enough. The pressure was too great. Hyo-sun saw the problem immediately. We need to shore up that wall or the whole entrance collapses. Everyone, grab rocks. Build a barrier. Humans and Velkari worked side by side. Taiwan lifted stones and passed them to a Velkari adult who positioned them perfectly. Dayun and another pack member worked together to wedge smaller rocks into gaps. The security guards coordinated with the younger Velkari to carry larger pieces. The matriarch stood in the center, making clicking sounds, commands, directions. Hyo-sun found himself responding to those sounds, understanding their meaning through context. Move this, support that, faster. The language barrier dissolved in the urgency of survival. They built a wall of stone and muscle, reinforcing the entrance against the storm's assault. Water still leaked through, but the structure held. Everyone stepped back, exhausted and breathing hard. Humans and Velkari looked at each other with new eyes. They had worked together, communicated, survived. Hyo-sun walked to the matriarch. He did not know her language, but he knew respect. He placed his hand over his heart and bowed his head slightly. The matriarch watched this gesture, seemed to understand its meaning, and lowered her own head in response. Taewon felt something warm and powerful in his chest. This was it. This was the moment that mattered. Two species forced together by circumstance, choosing cooperation over conflict, choosing to see each other as equals rather than threats. Da-un was recording everything with her scanner, tears running down her face. The response from headquarters took 3 days. 3 days of waiting, working, and learning. The rescue ship was damaged but not destroyed. The humans salvaged what they could and set up a proper camp near the cave. The Velkari pack remained close, no longer just observing but actively participating in daily life. Taewon spent hours each day working on communication. He recorded the sounds the Velkari made and tried to map them to meanings. Diane helped, using her medical scanner to analyze the frequency and patterns. They discovered that Velkari language used a combination of vocalizations and scale color changes. A click with darkened scales meant danger. The same click with lighter scales meant curiosity. Riven was the best teacher. The cub had patience with Taewon's clumsy attempts and would repeat sounds until he got them closer to correct. The young Velkari seemed to enjoy the challenge of teaching this strange human. Hyo-sun organized work details. The damaged ship needed repairs that would take weeks. His security team adapted quickly to working alongside the Velkari. They built better shelters together, established water collection systems, and even started coordinating hunting and gathering. The Velkari were excellent hunters. The humans had tools and fire. Combined, they were far more effective than either group alone. One evening, as Taewon sat by the fire with Riven, Da-un approached. She looked excited. I figured out pronouns, or at least I think I did. The matriarch uses a specific sound pattern when referring to herself, different from the pattern she uses for others. It's basic, but its grammatical structure, that's amazing. Have you tried using it back to her? Not yet. I wanted you to be there. You have better rapport. They found the matriarch resting near the cave entrance. Taewon made the sound pattern that meant I or self and then pointed to himself. Then he made the pattern for you or other and gestured to the matriarch. She sat up, ears perked with full attention. Taewon repeated it. The matriarch's scales rippled with lighter colors, which they had learned indicated positive emotion. She made a complex series of sounds that included both patterns, adding new ones. Da-un recorded frantically. She's building on it, teaching us more. She understands we're trying to learn. Over the next days, their vocabulary grew. The Velkari had words for food, water, danger, safe, young, old, hunt, rest. They had names for each other, though Taewon's human ears struggled to distinguish the subtle differences. The matriarch's name sounded like a deep rumble followed by 2 quick clicks. He tried his best to say it. She made the laughing sound he had heard from Riven before. On the 3rd night, Hyo-sun's communicator finally chirped with an incoming message. Everyone gathered around. The commander activated the playback. A woman's voice came through, official and formal. Commander Hyo-sun, this is Director Park Ji-won of the Colonial Science Division. We have reviewed your reports and the data sent by Dr. Taewon and Specialist Da-yun. Your findings are remarkable and disturbing. The board has been in emergency session for the past 18 hours debating the appropriate response. Hyo-sun and Taewon exchanged worried looks. The formal tone was not encouraging. The message continued. After extensive discussion and consultation with xenobiology experts, the board has made the following decisions. First, the Valkyrie are to be reclassified from hostile wildlife to potential intelligent species, pending further study. Second, this moon is hereby designated as a restricted first contact zone. No commercial or military activity will be permitted without diplomatic clearance. Taewon felt hope rising in his chest. Third, a full diplomatic and scientific team is being assembled and will arrive at your location in approximately 6 weeks. The team will include linguists, xenobiologists, cultural specialists, and diplomatic officers. Fourth, Dr. Taewon is hereby appointed as lead liaison for the Valkyrie Contact Initiative, assuming he accepts the position. Daeun grabbed Taewon's arm, grinning. Hyosun allowed himself a small smile. Finally, Commander Hyosun, you and your team are ordered to remain on site and continue establishing peaceful relations with the Valkyrie population. You will be resupplied within 2 weeks. Additional support personnel and equipment will arrive with the diplomatic team. The company recognizes that this situation represents a historic opportunity. Do not waste it. Director Park out. Silence followed the message. Then the security guards started cheering. Daeun hugged Taewon tightly. Hyosun stood and offered his hand. You did it. You actually convinced them. We did it, Taewon corrected. All of us. Humans and Valkyrie together. The matriarch approached, sensing the emotional shift in the humans. She made a questioning chirp. Taewon tried to explain using their limited shared vocabulary. More humans coming. Good humans, friends, learn together. The matriarch listened, her scales shifting through several colors as she processed this information. Then she made a long rumbling call that brought the entire pack. She communicated something to them in their complex language. The pack responded with various sounds, some agitated, some curious. This was a decision moment for them too. The matriarch was telling them that more humans would come. The pack was deciding whether to accept this or retreat to deeper wilderness. Riven moved to stand beside Taewon, then walked to the matriarch. The cub made soft chirping sounds as if adding its own voice to the discussion. The matriarch looked at Riven, then at Taewon, then at the other humans. She made her decision. A short, firm vocalization. Agreement, Daeun whispered. She's accepting. She's saying yes to continued contact. Taewon felt tears in his eyes. Everything he had hoped for, everything he had risked was coming true. 2 species that should have been enemies were choosing friendship instead. The following weeks transformed the camp into something new. Neither human nor Valkyrie, but a hybrid space where both could exist comfortably. The humans built structures that the Valkyrie found interesting and eventually started using. The Valkyrie showed the humans safe paths through the forest and the best locations for different resources. Children played together. Human security guards teaching Valkyrie youngsters simple games, while the young Valkyrie taught humans how to climb the strange trees safely. Language lessons happened constantly, everyone learning from everyone. Hyosun became surprisingly good at Valkyrie pronunciation. One of the security guards discovered he had a talent for mimicking scale color changes using light and shadow, which made the Valkyrie find him endlessly entertaining. Taewon spent most of his time with the matriarch working on deeper communication. They moved beyond basic words to concepts. Family, home, sky, stars. The matriarch seemed fascinated by the idea of humans coming from beyond the sky. She would look up at night studying the stars with new understanding. Riven grew stronger and larger. The cub's leg healed completely, leaving only a small scar under the scales. But Riven never strayed far from Taewon. The bond formed that first cold night by the fire remained strong. One evening, as the 2 suns set in spectacular colors, Daeun sat beside Taewon. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't helped Riven that night? All the time. The pack would have probably killed me eventually. I would have stayed afraid. They would have stayed hostile. Nothing would have changed. But you chose differently. Why, what made you see past the fear? Taewon watched Riven playing with a younger human security guard, both of them tumbling in the grass. I saw a child in pain. Everything else, all the fear and training and warnings, became less important than that one simple fact. Something was suffering and I could help. That's all it was. That's everything, Daeun said quietly. That one choice changed history. First contact between species usually happens through exploration or conflict. But this happened through compassion. That's going to be in textbooks forever. The human who chose kindness over fear. Taewon shook his head. I'm not special. Anyone could have made the same choice, but most wouldn't have. That's what makes it important. The supply ship arrived 2 weeks later as promised. Food, medicine, better equipment, and news from the wider galaxy. The story of the Velkari contact had spread. Other colonies were talking about it. Scientists wanted to come. Politicians saw opportunities. Some called Taiwan a hero. Others called him reckless. He ignored both extremes and focused on the work. The diplomatic team arrived 6 weeks after that initial message, exactly on schedule. 12 specialists, all carefully chosen for their expertise and open minds. Director Park Ji-won led them personally, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who had spent her career studying first contact scenarios. She stepped off the ship and immediately looked around for the Velkari. The matriarch stood at the edge of the clearing with her pack, watching the new arrivals carefully. Director Park walked forward slowly, unarmed and unhesitant. She stopped at a respectful distance and bowed, the same gesture of respect that Hyo-sun had used. The matriarch studied her for a long moment, then returned the gesture. Director Park smiled. Dr. Taewon, introduce me, please. Taewon used the vocabulary they had developed. New leader. Good human. Friend of Velkari. The matriarch responded with sounds that meant understanding and cautious welcome. Director Park listened carefully to every vocalization. I'm going to love working here, she said. The diplomatic compound grew over the next months.